it propelled my obsession of musical theater, and I will always be grateful to Smash for that.
We love Smash.
So
yes, 100%.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Off to Broadway, the podcast where we deep dive into anything and everything musical theater. I'm Tara.
I'm Stefania.
And in today's episode, we're talking about Smash the Musical, which if you're listening to this on episode release day, it closed yesterday after, I believe, 84 performances. Now, is this very meta of Smash to close in this way? Maybe.
Well, I mean, you know, the whole show itself is meta, even down to the ending, where they say, you know, we're going to write a musical, and then just describe this musical. So, yeah.
Also, we really messed up by not opening this episode with Fade In on a Girl with a hunger for fame and a face and a name to remember.
Fade in on a girl.
What did he say after that? What did Bowen say? That was a line from
the hit NBC musical dramedy Smash. And it's also what I used to sing at karaoke when I dreamed.
Opening of the SAG Awards,
I'm Bowen
which
Yang,
I guess was like months ago now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There was a time when we were like, are we going to do an episode on this? And you know what, to be honest, I don't think we knew that we were going to do an episode on this until the closing notice came earlier this week for us when we're recording this episode. But I do think it is kind of worth talking about because if you've been listening to us for a long time, we do have 2 full dedicated Smash TV show episodes. We have 1 full episode on season 1 and 1 full episode on season 2. And those episodes are like 2 hours each. We really talked about everything.
We should have dragged that out. We should have split that because 2020, we really were working hard for episodes.
If you remember when we recorded that season 1 episode, like you were still going into work before things were shut down. We were recording and you were like still working, which is crazy. Like,
yes, that's true. I was going in like a few days a week because one of my coworkers was on vacation when this all happened, so she couldn't come back to work, so I had to be there, and then I like left that job. Wow, that was crazy. What a time.
5 years ago. But yeah, you're so right. We should have dragged that out because we had no content that year. And
just like making stuff up.
Those episodes were like some of our like better like rated and listened to episodes because I think everybody was going and rewatching Smash in the pandemic.
Yeah, we should have just turned into a Smash recap podcast.
We should have.
But, you know,
alas,
it's over now.
You live and you learn.
Times have changed.
So here we are to talk about the musical version, which we saw back in April. Just to preface before we like get into any of this, this was actually, did we talk about this like day process of Rush? Because this was a 3-show day Rush situation. And I don't know if we've talked about this publicly.
I don't know what we talked about in our Tony nominations episode, but we can share how we rushed this show.
Yeah, because we weren't, well, with everything that we were seeing in that April trip, we weren't buying full price tickets to. So Smash was definitely one of those shows that we were looking to get a discount to. And then it was like maybe 1 day into our New York trip when we were like, wait, should we go back to O'Mary? Which, like, thank God we did because...
I know.
Also, like, on episode record day, the Tony Awards happened this past Sunday, so we're kind of just, like, fresh in all of that as well.
Yeah,
Tony winner, Cole Escola, for playing Mary Todd Lincoln. So, I don't remember, because I know we were, like, trying to figure things out, and then randomly we were like, wait, but 5 p.m., we could go see O'Mary. Should we go back to O'Mary?
I also think we were trying to see if your brother was going to come with us, which is why we picked Saturday, but, you know, he didn't want to wake up, so...
No, he didn't
make it.
But... no regrets for that. It was just like, I remember when like the conversation happened, we would not drop that. We were like, oh no, we're going to O'Mary. There was like, we gave up the Smash Rush line so that Steph could be in the O'Mary line. Like that's how much we were dedicated to going back to O'Mary.
Twice. O'Mary is honestly, shockingly, the only show I've seen on Broadway 2 times. Like, that's funny.
Really?
I guess I've seen West Side Story 2 times, but that was 2 different productions. But other than that, that's the only show I've seen on Broadway, like, same production 2 times.
Within, like, 6 months, basically.
Yeah. Because they're still running. But yeah,
worth every penny.
It was worth it. It was worth the $43 or whatever it was.
And also, like, it's not like we lost a spot for that, you know?
Yeah,
like
either
it's an
time.
add-on. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. It's between shows.
Anyway, back to that. So Steph was in line for Oh Mary, and I walked by Smash to see what was going on. And I feel like at that time, we were also like trying to see Death Becomes Her that day too. When I walked by, there were like, I want to say there was maybe like 10 or so people, so I wasn't like super concerned. My goal was to walk by Smash, walk by Death Becomes Her, and then like see which had the longer line and then stay. And by that time, Death Becomes Her had the longest line. I just had like a moment of like a vision of the Death Becomes Her line when a girl was sitting in the front line in a chair doing her makeup on a mirror that had lights on it.
You know what? That's Rush line. That's Rush. That's how it works.
So what we ended up doing there was I waited in line at Death Becomes Her. We were looking for tickets for the evening because we were also like looking at the telecharge seat maps to see like what had better availability, and Death Becomes Her had better randomly Saturday night availability than they did afternoon. We also were like, this was pre-Tonys and pre-nominations, and we were really worried about not seeing Megan and Jennifer, which has since become like a thing. It was actually a thing like before we went, because there was a time when we were looking at understudies.org every day, and we automatically knew that we could not attend Death Becomes Her on a Wednesday because they were always both out on like Wednesday. Anyway,
but then it ended up that week being like the week before Tony nominations came out, so it was like everyone was in the whole week, so we had a good weekend. We had a good weekend in terms of attendance. But anyway,
yes,
that's another reason why we wanted to go to the Saturday night.
100%. So I was in the Death Becomes Her line. I'm in the theater. Steph is in the Oh Mary line. She's getting the tickets, and she's out first, so she's running down to the Imperial Theater, which is on the same street, which is super convenient if you're going to the Lyceum. So
I was in boots. My feet hurt. I was in pain.
So she ran down to the Imperial, and then once I was done, like, I met her there, but like, they had gone through that full rush line already, and then you were still, what, like 15th or 16th in line by the time you got there?
Oh, yeah. The line was still long by the time I got there. And so then I just kept, once you joined me, I just kept kind of looking at the beginning of the line, moving around, trying to see what was happening. Ended up not being an issue whatsoever. No.
And we ended up, once we got to the window, I had just asked if there was any under 30 tickets left, because sadly, that's over now, because
over
I am no longer 30.
31.
So we had to take our final chance to get a 30 under 30, and we knew that those were like partial view box seats, but we like didn't really care per se, because a lot of stuff happens at like the top of the stage, and also like it's $30, so it is what it is. So yeah, we sat in the box for Smash, and we saw this on a Saturday matinee. And I feel like it's almost a waste to ask you what your knowledge of Smash was before, but like, let's go.
Let's go. Well, I watched Smash as it aired in the year 2012. Was it 2012? Like,
yeah, I think so.
On a weekly basis, I would sit with my fam, and we would watch Smash on television every week. I was a loyal viewer, and I was a loyal listener to the soundtrack, to the cast albums, to all of it. The podcast, oh my goodness. Well, these are like years later. I want to shout out to Louis Peitzman and After Smash specifically. I know they recently did like kind of a catch-up episode to talk about Smash the musical. But that I loved that podcast as well. That was, again, like a post-recap podcast. And then, you know, after watching the 2 seasons as they aired, kind of never let the show go, honestly. I can't let go. I can't let go.
We've talked about this before, but I will bring it up anytime I hear this song. I like literally have to think about the moment when Jennifer Hudson performed this at one of the Oscars, and I was at your house.
At my house watching it.
It was a watch party at Steph's house, and she's singing the song, and we're both like, what is this from? It sounds so familiar. It's from season 2 Smash, written by Jimmy Collins, played by Jeremy Jordan. Like, it's just
really written by Shaman and Whitman.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's okay. Yes. And so anyway, I couldn't let it go, couldn't let this music go, rewatched the show, covered on the podcast, and we've kind of been anticipating for years. Oh, during the pandemic when they aired the concert.
So good.
Of, like, quote-unquote Bombshell, hit list, whatever they were doing.
So good.
Watched that, made my whole family watch that. And yeah, we've just been kind of hearing for years and years rumors, Bombshell's coming to Broadway. No, actually, Smash is coming to Broadway. We're doing a workshop of this. Reading like people's accounts of the workshops. Like just been waiting with bated breath for years.
Into that. Yeah.
This to come to Broadway.
Yeah.
Tara, do you have a different experience or anything else to add?
I would say my experience is probably the exact same, except like anybody that knows me in my real life knows that like Smash is like a part of my personality. I quote it all the time. These are like we've said this, I think we said this on our Shame and Women episode. I've said this all the time. These are some of the best musical theater songs that have been written for a dumb TV show. Like, it's actually crazy some of the like song gold that we got out of this show.
Yeah.
I was just like completely obsessed with Smash throughout high school when I was watching it, and then I've rewatched it many times. I like made you rewatch it so that we could do those 2 episodes for the podcast, but that was maybe my like 4th or 5th time watching it through. I'm also famously a Hit List fan. So to me, again, like as you were saying, we have been like waiting for Bombshell to hit Broadway for years. And I do think it was that concert when they announced that it would be Smash and not Bombshell. And the way that it was like kind of announced was, we know that everybody has been waiting for this, and we're going to give you a musical about the making of the TV series Smash. Now, that's not quite advertised as, like, that isn't what we actually saw, but also when they had, like, dropped this information of, like, this is what everybody's waiting for, we were all like, no, actually, we didn't ask for this. We asked for Bombshell, the musical, and we asked for possibly Hit List. Nobody ever asked for Smash. That being said, when it was announced and we knew it was coming to Broadway, I had to see it. And then when we started reading reviews that it wasn't that great, I still had to see it. And we saw it, and I'm happy we saw it, but I'm not surprised that it's closed.
Yeah. What I would say is before we went, I will say I said, of all the shows we're seeing, this is my, I would drop this to see something else.
Yes.
Which we did not end up doing, but...
And please know that the show that this would have been dropped for is Gypsy. So just take that in. Funny. Just let that, just marinate with that.
Yeah, we chose this over Living Legend, Audrey McDonald.
But unfortunately, it was a non-negotiable for me, and we weren't willing to split up.
At one point, I was like, should I split up? I was like, can I leave? But no, we do everything together as always, as people in our lives
it's
know.
A moment in time. It's a moment in time.
No, it was a moment in time. I would also say Audrey McDonald starring in Gypsy on Broadway is also
a moment in time. Look, if we had one more day, and it turns out we did have one more day, we would have seen Gypsy. It was like, this was the thing. We had a list of 9. We ended up seeing 9. But Oh Mary was not on that list originally, but we had a list of 9 for 8 spots. And it was unfortunately between Smash and Gypsy. I'm like so sorry to everybody who was like
that's kind of how it ended up in the end. Like Just in Time was kind of like the last minute, like, okay, no, we have to see Just in Time, which means we gotta drop
something.
Gypsy. So
it's crazy. So true. Just in Time like really rose to the top of that list very quickly after like
so happy to see Just in Time.
A promo video was dropped. Or no, you became so obsessed with the curtain call.
Yes, I like could not stop watching the curtain call. And I was like, okay, I have to go see Just in Time. And you know what? So did Tom Hanks. He said that too. He saw that curtain call and he's like, I gotta be there.
And so does everybody else that's listening to this. Go see Just in Time because it's actually like one of the best bio musicals that we've seen.
Go see Jonathan
maybe ever.
Ross. Go see Jonathan Ross be a star. Yeah. So anyway, we had to see Smash because like it was a culmination of so much of our lives, honestly, at that point.
The circle.
That's so embarrassing, but yes. And on June 22nd, last night, it came to an end. It came to an end for us all.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us what you thought of Smash before I say what I thought of Smash?
Can I say what I thought it was gonna be?
Sure, yeah. Like, what were our expectations going in?
Yeah, so, like, reading aside, because I do think we should talk about that. I know that we've talked about this, like, kind of briefly, but I just, like, keep thinking back to that, like, original workshop that happened, like, maybe... Was it like 8 or so months before this moved to Broadway? Something like that. Maybe a year. I don't know. It wasn't like that much time. But I really thought when they said, you know, we're bringing Smash to Broadway, it was gonna be basically the TV show, season 1 at least, because we weren't getting anything from season 2.
Yeah.
Put on stage. I thought we were gonna get all of the same characters: Ivy, Karen, Derek. What's Angelica Houston's character's name?
Julia.
Eileen. Jerry. We do get a Jerry, but in a different way.
Oh, true.
I really thought we were gonna get like the characters that we, as the like fans of Smash, all know and love, but put
and
on
the character
stage,
dynamics that we kind of fell in love
all
with.
know and love, yeah. And then singing some of my favorite songs from this like musical TV show that I was so obsessed with. And that is like absolutely not what we got from Smash. And I don't know why who is the book writer on this?
Bob Martin.
Oh my God, so true.
That's
like
and Rick Ellis. Bob Martin and Rick Ellis.
Speaking of Ellis, where was Ellis?
Yeah, where was Ellis? There was an Ellis like type character whose name was
there was an Ellis type character, but not the same. He wasn't the same. So like that already knowing
Scott?
that like maybe. I don't know. It was already just like a little bit disappointing walking in knowing that we weren't getting what I thought that we were going to get. And then to take it back a step, we read about this workshop. Steph and I were deep in Reddit when this was happening, reading everybody's thoughts about this workshop. And they took some like creative liberties and decided to kill Ivy. And now seeing what we saw, I wish they kept that.
I wish they didn't. Kill her.
If you're gonna go if you're gonna go camp, you need to full send, and we didn't.
Yes, I fully agree here. I think like there was just like a level of restraint shown that was so unnecessary, and so much of what was fun about the TV show. The thing is, like, we talk about how much we love the TV show. The show's not good. Like, know that. It's bad. It's like, it's a bad
television high
show.
Art. Like,
no. The show itself was camp, but I don't think they realized it was. Like, they took it so serious.
Here's the thing, though. Camp. Like, go back. We've said this before. Go back and watch that pilot. So good. The season 1 pilot is amazing. Also, like, again, go back and think about that this was originally supposed to air on Showtime. It was supposed to be a much more risque show, more sexy. There was supposed to be sex scenes. That was all taken away, obviously, when it went to NBC.
Executive produced by Steven Spielberg, this show. And the musical, to be honest. But, like,
wow,
please.
Steven.
Yes, like, season 1, I think what made it so iconic is that it took itself so seriously and it, like, acted like it was prestige television, which is what made it camp. In that, like, they were so serious about it. And yet it was so silly.
Yeah. And,
like, that kind of lack of self-awareness was, like, so much a part of the charm. And I think this show is almost, like, too self-aware. To I don't know.
I guess also to, like, give a Coles Notes for anyone that's not familiar with Smash at all. It's basically the story of, like, these women... Well... That's not true. The musical is not this. But the TV show, the premise of the TV show is that it's Ivy and Karen, 2 female characters that are, like, auditioning to play Marilyn Monroe in a Marilyn Monroe musical called Bombshell. And it kind of shows their, like, I don't know, what it means to be famous, what it means to be in an audition room, what it means to be in a rehearsal room, which is honestly, like, my favorite parts of that entire series was, like... Stuff. Yeah, exactly. All the drama that ensues on Broadway, and then it also focuses on, like, the book writer and the songwriter and their lives, which are kind of chaotic. It focuses on the director of the show, and then, like, also the producer, like, how much does it cost to put a show on Broadway? Like, that's kind of the gist of the TV show. The gist of the musical is that Bombshell already exists. We have Ivy, who's already playing Marilyn when this starts, because it literally starts with that, like, here she is, Miss Marilyn Monroe, into a weird version of Let Me Be Your Star.
They're clearly, like, deep already in development of this musical. Like, they're in the rehearsal room before the Out of Town.
Yes. And in this version, Karen, who, again, in the TV show is someone that she was, like, fighting for a role with, is, like, Ivy's best friend in the chorus, which already...
/ understudy.
Yeah. What are we doing here? And then we do have like a director character. We have a songwriting duo who's like kind of loosely based on like the characters from the TV show. But then we bring in this like third character who's the associate choreographer, who is also like up for Marilyn, or she kind of just like steps into the role when something goes wrong, and then she kind of takes over. And now I'm like, what the hell happened in Act 2? Because I have no idea.
Well, Act 1 ended with Chloe, the associate director, playing Marilyn. I can't even talk about this. Playing Marilyn in her black suit after Ivy. I don't know where Ivy went, to be honest. And then
she goes crazy because of like the acting teacher. She becomes like a bitch.
And then Karen has taken a laxative that was meant for Ivy. Yeah, this is actually when I kind of lost my mind at this point, because I didn't like this, by the way. If people
I forgot about all of this.
Yeah. So Karen's husband, who's also in the ensemble, wanted to poison Ivy.
He's playing Joe DiMaggio.
Yeah, he's playing Joe DiMaggio.
Karen's husband.
He wants to poison Ivy so that Karen can have a chance to go on. So he puts a laxative in her cupcake.
In the cupcakes that she makes, yes.
For
yeah,
Ivy.
Wow.
Except Karen then eats Ivy's cupcake, and then she has to violently poop, I guess. And the scene ends with Carolyn Bowman being carried off stage by her on-stage husband in one of the most undignified positions I've ever seen in my life. I was so embarrassed for her having to do that. That was honestly when I was like, I actually like, I
can't be here.
I am against whatever this stands for, to be honest. Like, yeah, that was the moment where I kind of like, it jumped the shark for me, and we're still in Act 1. And then Chloe, who's the associate director, plays Marilyn that night. Again, no costumes, just in a black suit. And you know what? She has an amazing voice. She sounds amazing.
Yeah, shout out Bella Coppola.
What does happen in Act 2?
I don't know.
So we're going to Broadway.
Is it like the Ivy redemption arc in Act 2?
So Ivy gets redeemed, obviously. They try to fire Ivy, but they can't due to contractual issues, so she has to play Marilyn. They're still developing the show. They want to like change like the vibe of it a little bit. I don't know. What else happened in Act 2?
Well, we just get a lot from like the worst character that's ever been written for a musical ever, the acting coach.
Susan Proctor. Yeah. Yeah, Susan Proctor, who's dressed like a nun for some reason. I don't know.
So please know that
we're trying to pretend that Marilyn Monroe's acting teacher is still alive. Okay.
Yes. And also, please know that when you're sitting in a box, like, we're not beside each other. Like, one is in front of the other. So when she kept coming out, I kept looking back to Steph because I hated her so much. Like, I just really hated this character.
The one scene where they're doing, like, the sitz probe, and they've, like, Ivy's not there, and they're having Karen sing Marilyn during the sitz probe because they, like, want Ivy out. And I think, like, on one side of the side of the stage was obstructed for us because we were extreme side. Like, Ivy was coming out, but the side we could see, only Susan Proctor, the acting coach, was coming out. And I don't know why, but that was the funniest thing ever to us. Like,
this is like, for anyone that's watching us on YouTube, she's wearing like a hood the entire time, yes. And like these really like round circular glasses. I literally like, I don't know what we were, like, there were so many moments of that musical that I'm just like, where are we right now? Like, I just don't 100%. Understand, like, what we're doing. Because there's also that really long scene in Act 2 when they're, like, sitting in a bar, like, talking about
who's going to
like,
play
Brooks's character, like, ending up with a chorus boy. I was like,
right.
We're over this. We're over this. We've seen this storyline.
This is I have so many critiques for this musical, but what I think my, like, core critique, so many, actually, like, I can't even stop, but my core critique is the central storyline for me of the television show Smash is the kind of rivalry between Ivy and Karen, and that these two people have entered the industry from completely different places and are at completely different place in their career. Like, Ivy has quote unquote paid her dues for years and years, been in the ensembles of shows for years and years, and this is maybe potentially finally her turn to be the star. On the other hand, you have Karen, who is just like very green from Iowa or whatever, and she has absolutely no experience, but maybe she just has that it factor, and just kind of comparing and contrasting those two characters. And I thought as an audience member, that was a really interesting dynamic to be like, you know, why is someone cast? Why would you pick someone to play a role? Like, what is it about? You know, just an interesting dynamic. They took away that whole dynamic, that whole rivalry.
Yeah.
My guess is to, like, I don't know, they don't want women
Uplift
against
female
women.
friendship?
Like, I don't understand. They gave the characterization of Ivy to Karen. Now she's the forever ensemble person. And Ivy is already a star. And then, so instead of having this, like, rivalry between women, they instead imply that a woman shouldn't read a book because it would put bad ideas in her head. Like, sorry, what? Like, do you know what I mean? That's what ended up happening. Like, she read the book from Marilyn's acting coach and then went crazy. And I'm like, oh, women can't fight each other, but they can't read either. If they read, bad things are going to happen. They're like, you never let actresses read the whole book. I'm like, okay, I actually think we're even less feminist than we tried to be.
Hang on, but if you're gonna go through that point and say that women can't read, then they should have just killed her off like they did in the workshop.
I wish they killed her off. That would have been iconic at a certain point. And then the other thing is, okay, they get rid of the character of Derek because, you know, he was, you know, I get it, you know, a little, but then they're like, you know, we don't want, you know, this director to be having a relationship with a member of the cast. And then that still happens. He still has a relationship with a member of the cast.
Just like now that it's like a like man and man relationship, it's not as bad as like a man and woman relationship. When like, yes, Derek in the TV show was like a predatory.
Yeah, Derek was predatory, director. And I don't think that Brooke Sashmanskis is predatory in this, but
no. But however, like Ivy always consented. She loved him, so like
sure, but there is, you know, an uncomfortable power dynamic. The power dynamic is really the issue, not really whether Ivy was consenting or not.
But like
They do end the show with Ivy, like, pregnant with Derek's baby, if we recall. Remember that? That was camp.
I don't remember that. I remember the end of season 1.
I think it was just implied in, like, a montage.
Yeah. No, when we read that she died in the workshop, I was like, oh, great. They're taking that, like, episode 9 of
like,
season 1.
Uma Thurman.
No, not even that. Don't you remember when, like, Karen and Ivy sleeps with Dev? And then she takes pills backstage. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, we're getting this. No. Yeah, the storyline is like really crazy, which is nuts when you think of like Bob Martin, who's written The Prom, which is a musical comedy that we both really like. And he also wrote Boop this season, did you say?
He did. Bob Martin did write Boop.
Which, don't get me wrong, like, Boop is not a perfect book musical, but it's definitely more cohesive than this storyline is giving us. Well, we're also, like...
I enjoyed Boop more than I enjoyed Boop more than I enjoyed this, for sure.
We also have, like, the side storyline of, like... Was Krista Rodriguez's character in this?
I don't know.
I know, I gotta...
Not Julia, but she's got the scarves.
Krista Rodriguez is
Tracy and Jerry.
Tracy and Jerry, who are a married couple that are the, like, songwriter duo. And to me, the only redeeming person in this entire show was John Bellman as Jerry.
Not Brooke Sashmanskis? Like,
when he wasn't being weird, yes, he was great. He had some, like, really funny, like... The opening night of Marilyn was actually really, other than the whole, like, laxative thing, but before it started, when he was, like, on the house mic, just, like, swearing to the audience, that was really funny stuff. And he's just so charming.
He's a charming
Although, like,
actor.
I think I said this too in the theater, my, like, kind of main critique of Brooks is that he's always playing the exact same character. Like, there's literally no difference between any of the characters that he's played. And we also saw him, like, earlier in this season already. Yeah. In Once Upon a Mattress, where he's also playing the exact same character. So there's, like, not much for him to do that makes me think like, oh, that's such a standout, because like I saw it already. I've already seen this.
The thing about, like, you know, really great actors sometimes is like, sometimes you just want to hire the right person for the role. Like, you've written a role and then you have someone who already, you know, embodies that role so well and just can bring that exact specific thing. But when, in my mind, this book was like so thin, he really had to like rely on what I would call like Brooksisms. And it's just like, okay, when the material is like so strong and then it's elevated by your like special sauce, versus the material is like, in my mind, in the show pretty weak, and then you're just like, well, just like sprinkling my sauce all over this to like, you know, cross my fingers, hope it lands. And that's what I really
guess
felt
it
like
worked
was happening
because
here.
he was nominated for a Tony.
He did get a nomination. He is very loved.
I guess that works for him. And here's the thing, like, I really do like him as an actor. I'm just like, I don't know. I've seen this, been there, done that type thing. So I almost wanted to see like something different. But you're right. Like, he didn't have anything to work with, so he's just giving us what he's good at, which is what he's good at.
An amazing time. Yes, like after seeing him in The Prom, where he's absolutely so charming and is able to really give like a lot of heart to the character of Barry. I mean, really like tug on your heartstrings. To see him kind of do, you know, whatever was happening here. I just felt like the material like was not worthy of these actors, of these performers.
No. So that's why I say that like my one redeemer was like John Bellman, because he was the only one that like brought a little bit of like charm to the stage.
And alcoholism, just, like, if you will.
Then we also have like Anita, who's technically like Eileen. I would say she's like trying to produce the show, but she's also trying to deal with like everybody and all of the drama with Ivy. We haven't even talked about Ivy herself. Ivy Lynn, played by the wonderful Robin Herder, who like I am actually like devastated for her that she got caught up in this garbage, but like here she is.
The thing with Robin Herder that I found really interesting is her real life story is quite similar to Ivy from the TV show. You know, a dancer, been in the ensemble of so many shows, and this is her first, you know, final curtain call, her first, you know, leading role in a show. And that is exactly what happens to Ivy in the original television show Smash. And to have, when you could have had this like perfect match of character and actress, to then completely change the character, it just doesn't make sense to me.
It feels like a wasted opportunity for her specifically. And then it's also like, I don't know, just she's such a beautiful dancer. We didn't even get to really see that. She's like a really great performer. I feel like we barely saw that. Here's my actual, like, book and everything aside. My main critique of this musical is, why are we chopping the songs left, right, and center? We did not get like a full song except for Let Me Be Your Star at all. And it's so frustrating when the reason that this musical is even here is because everyone is obsessed with the music, and we get to like cut, print, moving on, one of my favorite songs ever, and it's like, here's 10 seconds of it and goodbye. And no real like big dance numbers here except for like a couple, but even still everything kind of felt like muted, which it shouldn't. It should feel big. It's a big show. It's a big musical. Everything, all the dance numbers happen for the most part in the rehearsal room. And so by virtue of that, they, you know, are in a lot of times their practice outfits. They're in this like one brick studio. And I wish, and something that we could have really had that was special on stage that was taken a little bit from the TV show, is we could have seen them, you know, start rehearsing it like in the studio, and then slowly piece in different elements. Okay, then it'll be like the director call, okay, a lighting cue here, okay, a set piece here, and then you have the dancers exit and enter on in like their costumes, and just watch them create something on stage. And I felt like we never got that opportunity to see that. My, like, jumping off that critique, the way that this felt like a jukebox musical where they retrofit the story around the songs. None of the songs in this musical moved the story forward. No. Every time we had a song, this plot stopped, and then we heard a beautiful song, and then the plot picked up again after it. All the songs in this musical are diegetic, which is fine. There's rarely a moment where the characters don't know that someone is singing. Every song is heard by the other characters. So using that constraint, you're stuck in the way you can use these songs for storytelling. Everything requires a lot of exposition before, requires a lot of exposition after, and then you're like pausing songs in the middle to do scene work to tell the story because the song is not doing that work for you. I guess like that is kind of what happens on the TV show, if that's like the one thing that they took from it, of like they're not
sometimes
yes, sometimes no. Yeah. But there's also like
some
30 plus songs in that TV show versus like however many what is it, like 16, 17 songs that are here. So it's like you can do that when you have 5 songs per episode. Like it's not as jarring than when you see it on stage.
But I also did feel like in the musical, or in the TV show, sorry, they did maybe a better job in paralleling Marilyn's journey to our characters' journeys than they did in the musical.
Because it was a true like battle of who was going to play this character, and when the main concept
and like the pitfalls of Marilyn's fame, or career paralleled, you know, the difficulties that Ivy or Karen or whoever were having in their career. And then you would write a song about it, and then you would sing about it. You know, you had in the TV show, the relationship that Ivy has with her mother, and then you're paralleling that difficult relationship that Marilyn had with her mother, and you're singing songs that are kind of representing both of those things. Or when Ivy is, you know, passed over for Marilyn again, and she goes and she sings They Just Keep Moving the Line, which they kind of do here, but like not as effectively in my mind, but Karen has that moment in the musical. And, you know, she's been passed over again, and then she sings this song about how Marilyn was passed over. You know, it has that like double impact for the audience. And I think the musical, like never was able to make that work.
I really don't understand why like a story was written for you. So why didn't you just like take that? I don't understand why the core of that story, which is that like rivalry between these two women, was completely like thrown out the window. And to like up the ante, they're adding a third person in here who's also like trying to get the role of Marilyn. I just like,
or is she?
Yeah, exactly. Like part of the like charm of the TV show was like the competition aspect of it. I like, if you remember, I swear it was probably like a Super Bowl Sunday that the episode that was airing was when they were going to tell us who was Marilyn, and that was maybe the like most watched episode of Smash ever. It was so exciting to see like the results of this, and never once did I feel any of that same like excitement in this musical.
Yes, like the only thing that was in common with the TV show is the character names, Ivy and Karen. Not even their characters' personalities carried through to this.
It's like swapped almost. Well, not even.
Not even.
The character of Ivy in this musical is not really a real person. It's like the Uma Thurman character.
Sort of the Uma Thurman, but Uma Thurman like wasn't like a Broadway actress in Smash. She was just kind of like a regular actress. No, she was like an established Broadway actress. And then there's no kind of, and I know a lot of people didn't like Karen as a character, but what I think Karen's importance was in the show was that she was very new to the industry. So many things were explained to the audience through explaining them to her.
The reason I know so much about behind the scenes of theater is because of Smash, and I mean that like seriously.
100%. No, fully agree.
Yeah.
Seeing kind of like what happens in the rehearsal room, what is an out-of-town tryout, what is, you know, and it's funny that in this show they represented out-of-town tryout, but Smash itself never had an out-of-town tryout.
No, they just had that like
they opened cold on Broadway. They just did workshops, but they opened cold on Broadway.
Yeah. There's also, so I wanted to go back to what you were saying earlier about the musical numbers and how the TV show does so effectively, like the rehearsal to the actual like staged version of it. Two perfect examples of this, if you are interested in like seeing the magic of sometimes what that TV show gave us, is 20th Century Fox Mambo. It is one of the best like musicalized like songs on a TV show ever. It starts in the rehearsal room, then we get the wig, and that's also like that's kind of like what you were talking about too of how these are moving along the plot. Like in that song specifically in the TV show, we see Derek like fantasize what Karen would look like if she had the wig on. He like sees the vision come to life. Never once do we get anything like that in the show, and we get that song. It's my like one of my favorite songs. And then another like perfect example of this in the TV show of like what an amazing start in rehearsal room to stage is Let's Be Bad. It's one of my favorite scenes from that TV show in both seasons, and it's done so great. And we knew that this was the Act 2 opener, and I was like, oh, we're finally going to get, like, a big dance number, and it kind of just, like, flopped as well. So, I don't know. I just, like, it felt like there was no clear vision here. It felt like, you know, this is what people have been asking for. Let's throw some things to a bulletin board, see what sticks, and whatever sticks is what we're going to put on stage. And it's just, like, sloppy. Unfortunately, it was like, and that's why it was sloppy. It closed. Like, that's the thing. It didn't run long. I
agree. I felt it was sloppy. I felt it was lazy.
Mm-hmm. And you kept saying that this is so lazy.
Like, literally, that's how I felt. And then, like, the big thing that I felt as I was leaving, I said, I felt like this was a huge missed opportunity. Like, there was so much, you know, good is a strong word, but so much iconic material, and
some of it is good. Some of it is good.
Some of it is good. Maybe this is too much attachment to the source material, and not everyone feels the way that I feel. Not everyone feels this way.
Other people our audience was eating
this up. But I truly felt that there was so much good source material to work with. Mm-hmm. And they just kind of discarded almost all of it. Mm-hmm. And I just felt like it was such a missed opportunity. I wanted to see these beautiful songs staged so bombastically, so over the top, and I don't feel like I got any of that with any of the songs. I wanted to hear these songs sung in, like, a beautiful, like, way. I wanted to, you know, feel the full, let's say, emotional impact of something like a Don't Forget Me.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like I ever got that, like, true, like, breakthrough moment in this show at any point.
No, I think the only thing that comes close to that is the, like, Let Me Be Your Star moment. But that's only because, like, Bella sounded so amazing. Not because I was, like, invested in anything that was happening. It was just like, oh, and we'd previously seen her. She dipped into Toronto to play Jane Seymour.
I don't think we ever saw her, but she did.
I thought we did.
I don't think we saw Bella. She was only here for, like, 4 weeks. We definitely saw Kelsey Kimmel.
Oh, you're right, because that was, like, the greatest performance I've ever seen.
That was crazy. Ever. But I don't think we ever saw Bella Coppola.
Then maybe I've just, like, listened to it.
We just knew.
Many times.
Yeah. Yes, like, that's the frustrating thing. You know, you have Let Me Be Your Star. She sounds amazing singing Let Me Be Your Star. And yet, what we're getting from an audience perspective is a woman in a black suit singing Let Me Be Your Star.
That actually would have been a perfect opportunity to start her in that suit, but then let's stage it.
Transition.
Put the wig on. Let's go. Let's get her, like, in that. But then they just, like, framed it as a way of, like, nothing, the costumes won't fit her, the wig doesn't fit her, we can't do this, so she just has to do this in her, like, regular clothes.
Her outfit. I wonder if there could have been a way to do something with, like, have her sing that song, like, have it be a triumphant moment for her in the, like, bombshell that's taking place. But then also, if we bring Ivy and Karen in, maybe on either side of the stage, like, you know, begging the audience, like, not on stage, but asking, like, let me be your star, you know, put Karen on a toilet, I don't know. But just, like, this was her opportunity that she missed. And I want to see her being like, please, like, let me be your star. Or Ivy has been, you know, obsessing over trying to actually be like Marilyn to try and be the star of the show. Like, can we do some storytelling? Can we have these characters actually asking the audience, please, like, let me be your star? Let me be your star. That's why the show works so well, because they sang Let Me Be Your Star in the audition. That's why it was so good. They wanted to be the star.
Yeah, it's just, and like,
lost it.
There were so many times when, as this was going on, it's like, can we just do something? Because we're not doing anything right now. Mm-hmm. I do want to talk about, again, like, as we were saying, our audience ate this show up. Everyone was laughing so hard, except for, like, the girls in the booth that were with us. Those were theater fans, and they also knew. They knew what we knew. But I do want to go through, because I do think it's kind of relevant based on closings, the grosses for Smash, because it wasn't all bad all the time. When this first opened, they were at 95% capacity. They were making, well, I mean, like, $715,000 for the gross is, like, not good, but that's week one, so that's whatever. Then the week after that, they, like, upped that to $860,000, 95% capacity. Then they lost their capacity by a bit, but the numbers were growing strong. I don't know, March 30th, was that, like, a holiday week? Possibly. When was Easter? Maybe around that time. Easter Easter was later.
April, I think.
Yeah. Okay, so like there might be holidays in here, which obviously will impact the grosses always. They always do. So somewhere in here, there's a few holidays. But we bumped that 860 up to 965. Then we drop back down. And the week of April 20th, which was the week before we were there, it made $1 million for the first time. Now, I imagine that these shows these days are all kind of like needing to hit the over like $850,000 mark to like somewhat pay out, like to make money, a little bit of money, but I'm not sure.
Especially the Imperial is a fairly big theater. Like it has a lot of seats, so your rent is a bit higher probably, and also you just have like more seats to fill, more you have more capacity and potential for income than some other shows.
So then the week after we were there is when they started to dip and lose their capacity. So the week we were there which was the week of April 27th. It was, ending on April 27th, 82% capacity. Then after that, the following weeks are 78, 76, 78, 83, a bump up, but I think that was a holiday weekend, Memorial Day. And then the last 2 weeks, which are recorded here for now, obviously like we're early here because it's June 12th when we're recording. So on Tony, like pre-Tony week, 68% capacity with an average ticket price of $81, only making $625,000 on a weekly gross, which is not good. And then
at this point, we know the Tony nominations and we know that they have not been very successful.
100%. And then this last one, which is ending on Tony Sunday, was 66% capacity with an average ticket price of $87 per ticket and a weekly gross of $656,000. And then it was on the Tuesday after the Tonys that they announced that Smash was closing. So I'm not good with math. Steph is good with math. But there are people that we watch all the time. Dylan on TikTok, Theme Park Entertainment, is always doing weekly grosses, and he does a really great analysis of what this like means and who's in trouble. Brian, the business analyst, who I haven't watched that often recently, but he's often like doing this as well. But it is hard, and a lot of people are saying that we are in a like maybe recession year, and that's not to say that like this would have lasted based on the material, but I do think we are kind of like currently, again, during this recording time, like in the stretch of possible closures. There are some shows that haven't announced anything yet. Like I'm really hanging on here for Dead Outlaw, but I don't think it's going to be very good for them. But it's just like this always happens post Tony Awards when shows just like don't perform as well as their producers hoped that it would, that we start to see drop off.
I don't really know what they thought the Tony Awards were going to do for this show.
Well, not this show. What did they get? Like 3 nominations?
2. Best performance by a featured actor in a musical, that's Brooks Ashmanskas, and best choreography for Josh Burgas.
Who also did choreography
which
on
is
the TV
basically
show.
The exact same choreography from the TV show, so whatever. Yeah, the thing is, what I always look at when I'm looking at the grosses, which I do periodically, the average ticket price is like a really telling one for me. And then also capacity. Like the overall, like the weekly, like overall gross is a bit hard to interpret for me. But when I see that average ticket price, I'm like, oh, most people are buying these tickets discounted, or most people are buying these tickets at full price. Like, and a show really needs full price advanced ticket buyers to survive. It's just crucial.
The highest average
especially
was
a new show.
$106, and that was week 1. The top ticket like is $300, but like those are few and far between these days. Yeah. Most people are like, this was a show that was on TKTS every day since it opened. They had a lottery. They had, again, the 30 under 30. They also had the regular rush pricing. Like, there was lots of ways to get discount tickets to the show. TDF, which we never talk about because we don't live in the States, but, like, it's always on there type thing. I don't know. It's just so interesting. This is, like, not super on topic, but it is relevant to, like, grosses. Please. I just read the New York Times article on Maybe Happy Ending, which obviously won 6 Tony Awards, and they talked about, which we've talked about, how this show was literally going to close before it even opened based on their average ticket price numbers, which I think that article said it got as low as $45 as an average ticket price.
Crazy.
And, you know, they talk a lot in that article about the power of the people and word of mouth. And that was a show that had some of the best word of mouth that I've seen in a really long time.
Word of mouth saved that show.
And I just don't think that we're seeing, well, we never did see that word of mouth for a show like Smash, like, which is kind of crazy because, again, like, back in its prime, everybody was talking about this show.
Well, a very niche community was talking about this show. But
no,
yes,
I know, but like, why didn't we reach out to like that niche community? We had some fun people working the social media team, and I feel like we didn't do anything there. Quincy, I'm talking to you. Ryan, Quincy, I'm talking to you.
And I will say, you know, we talk about like if we are in a recession, approaching a recession, at what we're at minimum approaching is people being very conscious of where they're spending their money. Mm-hmm. And as theater becomes a more and more expensive hobby, people want to purchase tickets to something that they feel is going to be a reliable, good time at the theater. They're less likely to want to take a chance spending hundreds of dollars pre-purchasing tickets on something where the word of mouth is medium or iffy. And they want to, you know, spend that money on a sure bet. So when you have something where the word of mouth is like very middling, and I've read, you know, so many things online about, you know, why would they make these choices? Why would they do this? Why would it be like this?
We forgot about the whole social media section of this musical as well.
Yes, like you can't trust, oh my God, wow, we did forget about the whole social media section about this musical, the virality. You can't trust that it's going to be a strong, enjoyable night at the theater. People will pass and say, you know, I'd rather spend money on something else.
Yeah. So, again, like, I think this is kind of on track of what typically happens around this time of year, and I read something that was like there's only 2 shows from last season that lasted, and it's Hell's Kitchen and The Outsiders, and everything else kind of like slowly died off months after like the Tony Awards.
Right.
I don't know. It's obviously like you never want to see a show close because it's so many people that are out of a job, and wow, poor Krista Rodriguez. I feel like she never gets a break.
Krista, never a hit. Here's the thing. I definitely don't want people to be out of jobs, but I do think, like, theater is a life cycle, and things close, things open. This is just, like, in my mind, how it goes. I think everyone in the show is talented. I wish them well on their next jobs, but I'm not sad that a show that I personally found kind of really, like almost like lowest common denominator of thought is making way for something hopefully with a bit more creativity and just a bit more like boldness.
The Imperial can't catch a break.
Something else.
The Imperial.
What? Sorry?
I said the Imperial can't catch a break.
The Imperial. I love the Imperial. The Imperial. I saw my first ever Broadway show at the Imperial Theater.
What was there right before? What was in last season before? Oh, Water for Elephants. And then before that, Bad Cinderella.
Bad Cinderella. Oh God, not the Imperial. I've heard they're going to do a renovation. That's what I've heard. I don't know if it's going to be after this or after one more show, but I've heard a renovation is in order for the Imperial. So, we will see.
Yeah, I don't really have anything more to say on this. Do you?
No, that's kind of where I'm at. I was pretty disappointed. And then, like, you know, as certain things were going on, you know, I just get, like, more and more, like, annoyed at what's happening on stage.
Yeah, I guess, like, we didn't really give, like, an overall thought or whatever, but it's kind of just, like, as sloppy as this book is how it feels in our brains. It's just kind of a mess, and that's kind of how it all came out. But we will rate it. So what are you going to rate this, Steph?
Oh, God. That's a good question. I'm just trying to think what I should rate it. What's my rating scale? I will rate Smash 4 out of 10 laxative cupcakes. Like,
I, for 1 second there, thought you were going to say 2.
Not 2. Okay. Imagine giving it a 2. I would. No,
no you wouldn't.
No. Like, I laughed.
A glowing review. I laughed.
Some, like, this beautiful songs, but to me, like, the book was really, really weak and just did not inspire anything in me. Like, I was not excited when I left the theater in any way. Yeah. So, 4 out of 10 laxative cupcakes.
I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 10 books for women that shouldn't be reading. The only reason why I'm giving this a 5 is because I will say, as such a fan of the TV show, it was exciting to hear those songs in a theater. And if nothing else, the $30 was worth the orchestra version of that. So, and some of them were sung really beautifully. I do still hate the fact that so many of them were so abruptly chopped down because it was unnecessary. But just to get to have that full circle moment, close the chapter, if you will, and hear that music in a live sense was enough to give it 50% for me. This is a show that I don't think will ever tour, because why would they ever tour this?
Why bother?
Based on the fact that it was very unsuccessful. So if you also were living in the moment and got to see Smash on Broadway, congratulations. We all live in that world together.
Yeah. We completed the circle. It really brought us to an end.
Should I just go back and watch season 1 and 2 again to get the fix that I actually
just watch
needed?
little clips of it.
Sometimes I do.
And maybe if we watch it recently, we'd be oh, actually, it got the musical it deserved. Maybe we'd feel that.
I don't know. You know what? Megan Hilty and Katharine McPhee deserve better than this musical. And you know what? All this to say, both of them did not attend the opening night. And I really thought one of them would have. I know Megan was busy, but I thought Katharine McPhee would be there.
Katharine McPhee was a Boop supporter this season, okay?
And rightfully so.
Rightfully so. Rightfully so. Okay?
You know what also happened, literally a week ago on recording? They just, put up that, Marilyn Monroe, theater sign. It's,
the street, the
street sign. Take that down.
Forgot about that.
Gotta go. But yeah, that's...
And also, we didn't even talk about the entrance to the theater. They have, a theme park kind of, stanchions.
Oh, let's take a minute, because that is, how it should be. I feel like this is the first time in a long time that I felt the lineup to get in the theater was kind of chaotic, and especially where were we going when the fire truck started to come out?
Dead Out Lot. We were at Dead Out Lot.
That was chaotic. That was really chaotic.
We were lined up around the block to get in, and the fire truck had to leave.
I'd been at the Imperial Theater decently recently because I saw Water for Elephants, and I did not know that fence opened up to expose the stanchions that they created for Smash. Basically what it was is they needed to get people off of the street, which is smart because when you're lining up for
there's construction on that street too, I think is a big issue.
Yes, there's also 4 theaters in such close proximity to each other that the lines all kind of feed in. You've got Operation Mincemeat, The Outsiders, Smash, and Picture of Dorian Gray all right beside each other. And then John Proctor's the villain is a little bit down the street. But so they kind of, instead of just having us line up on the sidewalk in front of the theater, they fed us into this fenced off area, which literally
was
so
ugly in there, by the way.
Line. But you know what? We moved fast, and the security guard she was on it.
She was okay, move. So you're being fed through.
Yeah.
No, it was good. It was kind of funny.
And the lobby to the Imperial is quite big. It's very long.
It's long.
Yeah.
It's long. Because the theater is actually on a different street.
Exactly.
But yes.
That's our thoughts on Smash, and now it's time for our obsession of the week. Did you hijack this? Is this what we're doing?
Yeah, okay. I have nothing else.
Explain it.
Okay, so my pitch this week is to pay tribute to the original series, was to pick an obsession that was a song from the television show Smash. And
can I guess yours? Because I think I know what it is.
There's one that I sing literally all the time,
every day.
And I wanted to speak on this. Song. Because
famously not in the musical.
One, it's not in the musical. And 2, it has a fantastic vocal performance. Okay, Tara, what is my song?
On Lexington and 52nd Street.
It is. That is one of my absolute favorite Smash
I'm not
songs.
sure what key that was in that I just did, but it was the wrong one.
You're giving your best Will Chase. And you know what we were missing? We're missing an affair.
Will Chase.
You're
so right. We are missing an affair.
Let's give us drama. Let's give us Deborah Messing in a weird shirt and pants.
On a couch.
On a bridge. On a couch, wherever. I don't know, with Will Chase. Yeah, you know, I was thinking, I was like, bring Will Chase back to Broadway. And then I was like, he was literally just on Broadway in Once Upon a Mattress.
He was out when, we were there.
So we don't need to bring him back. He's there. But he can always come back. What a beautiful voice. Yeah, I just love Lexington and 52nd Street. I love it as like kind of a male song. Well, that sounds silly, but like, you know, this is such a female heavy musical, Bombshell, Smash generally. And you just have like a great Broadway singer in Will Chase just singing this kind of like desperate plea as, who is he, Joe DiMaggio?
Yeah.
And I just loved it. I love the melody. It's so fun to sing.
You know what song we also didn't get, which devastating? History is made at night.
Was that one played like at the bar at one point?
Yes, I think it was on the piano. That was actually, like, I did appreciate those moments. There were not enough of those moments. Yeah.
An Easter egg.
No, they picked Mr. and Mrs. Smith over History's Made at Night, which is not right.
Yeah, I agree. But then, they did like a weird scene work thing in Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Where she would be like...
matzo ball. Oh my god.
Oh my god. No, like she was singing Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and then like she would ask for like between every line she would go back to her acting teacher. Yes, there was the matzo ball scene. Yes. Also when she went home with was it Joe DiMaggio's parents? Was it Arthur Miller's parents? Or was someone's parents?
One of their parents, yeah.
Yes. Anyway, my obsession this week.
There's so much plot we never even got to because like everything's coming back in waves, and maybe one day like when we're talking about something else we'll be like, remember when that happened? Because that's like how it feels. It just was so messy. It was such a mess.
Like the writers of the musical like wrote songs and added them to the musical without telling each other, and then that was like never revisited for the rest of the show.
Wasn't it a big song too?
Yeah, it was Secondhand by Baby Grand.
Oh, Secondhand. What? You know, we didn't even talk about like the music in the musical because it felt like such a side.
Who cares?
Thing.
Like we know the music before. We know it already, and then it was just kind of like again chopped up.
Exactly.
And then then Jerry wrote "Don't Say Yes Until I Finish Talking" and then performed it for
tomatoes.
He's like, I'll jump in, I'll do it, and then hadn't told his wife about it, and then they're like, oh yeah, and then he turns into an alcoholic during the show. And he decides to quit drinking by the end, and you're just like, kind of like, okay, Jerry.
Sure. We've really been on this long journey with you.
He would just come and do like a one-liner and like drink out of his flask.
You know what is fun though?
Chris Rodriguez in a scarf.
His vlogs were fun.
Yes, I agree. Jerry Duty.
Jerry Duty. Yeah, you can go back and watch this on Broadway.com.
Okay, Tara, do you have an obsession this week?
Yes. So when this was tasked to me like 5 hours ago, I was like, I can't really talk about a song from season 1 because, like, as I said at the beginning of this episode, Hit List is my musical. So I have to pick from season 2, and there's actually, like, so many that I love from Hit List. This is the difference. We've talked about this previously, but, like, Bombshell was written by Shaman and Whitman, and Hit List was kind of mostly Pasek and Paul with, like, a little bit of Joe Iconis sprinkled in there. And fun that Pasek and Paul and Shaman and Whitman wrote the opening number for the Tonys this year. So they kind of like reunited in that sense a little bit.
All you need is a song or whatever it was called.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, my obsession this week is the song from season 2, Rewrite This Story. It is sung by Jeremy Jordan and Catherine McPhee. I just think the two of them together on so many of these hit list songs are so good. I've also previously talked about my favorite, Caught in the Storm. I've talked about Heart-Shaped Wreckage. The songs are so good.
I haven't thought about hit list in a while because we've been in like Smash Bombshell zone this past
bangers year. Only on hit list. Literally bangers only. No, Rewrite the Story. I always get confused these days with like Rewrite the Stars because also Pasek and Paul from The Greatest Showman. But I just, like, I really love this song. There was, like, a period of time when I was listening to, like, only hit lists, and I was, like, so obsessed. This is actually where, like, the Jeremy Jordan obsession started for anybody that, like, doesn't know. This is where it began.
So true.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I feel like so much of my, like, theater identity is literally tied to Smash because so many of my, like, my obsessive personality began because of this show. Angly.
Well, this is the thing. Like, the thing with theater, it's so tricky because it is very location specific. Like if you're not there, and it's also sometimes cost prohibitive, but when you have like cast albums, when you have television shows, when you have movies, it really allows like people to see parts of an industry that they hadn't seen before, or are able to consume it in their home and like fall in love with something that then would then motivate them to potentially go to the theater. So as much as I love like being in person in the theater, and I think there's like nothing like it or nothing as special, by having movies about that, by having TV shows about it, albums, all of that stuff, like you can only like create a bit more fans by kind of bringing people into the behind the scenes. And I think that's what Smash did so well. Like it really truly, like I learned so, and it was also like a formative time for me, but like, learned so much about what it was to put on a musical, what it meant to create and producing it, workshopping it, writing it, casting it, all of these different elements that I just as a regular person wouldn't necessarily know were taught to me for the first time in some cases from this show. And that's why I like Smash, you know, it was important.
No, 100%.
A seminal text of the theater.
And like all that, plus all the people. Christian Borle, I knew because of Smash. Wesley Taylor, I knew because of Smash.
Megan
I knew
Hilty.
Catherine McPhee because of American Idol.
Yeah, we knew.
But like, you know, Megan Hilty, Jeremy Jordan, like Andy Mientis, Krista Rodriguez, like these are all people that are like
Brian Darcy James.
What's his name from Brooklyn? Who I love. What's his name? What's the son? What's the son's name? Leo.
Son's like Leo, but I can't remember the actor's name. Go
ahead.
When we saw Death Becomes Her the night we saw Smash, I was like, welcome back, Ivy Lynn.
Yes, literally. That's, we haven't even done our Death Becomes Her episode yet, but like that is that. But yeah, I just think that like everything like aside, it propelled my obsession of musical theater, and I will always be grateful to Smash for that.
We love Smash.
So
yes, 100%.
Again, we finally like closed the loop, and wow,
we'll never speak
about
Smash
talk
again.
about Smash again? No, we'll talk about it again. Just stop me on the street one day if you see me. I have so many things to say.
We've got lots of thoughts about Smash.
Sometimes I'll be listening to it in the car. So yeah, but yeah,
I'll listen to Hit List tomorrow.
It's literally like so good. It starts with Cut Print. That whole album starts with Cut Print Moving On, which tragedy in this show, and
it's in it though, isn't it? It's in the show.
But like Dancing on My Own is on this album as well, because they kind of did some more like covers. What about when Public Relations? What a song. What else is on here? Oh, like, I mean, Hitless season 2 takes a turn when we go into the other show that Ivy does with Sean Hayes. Yes.
Oh yeah, Dangerous Liaisons?
Yes.
Do you remember when Andy Mientis wore the suit to the opening of Smash? And it had like tire tracks on it? That was funny of him. That was iconic of you, Andy. I don't always like you, but that was funny.
I don't know.
That was funny. Your husband just won a Tony. But
yeah, if you've learned anything, I would if you're gonna take anything away from this, it's go listen to the cast recordings from season 1 and season 2 of Smash. That's what I would
100%.
say on this. And maybe dip into the TV show and see how you feel. But yeah, that is in a roundabout way all of our thoughts on Smash, the TV show, the musical, and our obsession of the week. And that's the end of this episode. This was kind of like a quick record to get this out timely. So you can never see Smash again, and that might be for the best. So, but if you want to actually go back and listen to our Smash TV show episodes from 5 years ago, you can do that by subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. You unfortunately can't watch those on YouTube because we weren't on YouTube yet.
No, oh my God.
But we've talked about it so many times on so many other YouTube videos, so you can... Actually, you know what? I will recommend that you go back and listen to our Shaman and Whitman episode, so you can hear some of those songs there. But yeah, go over to our YouTube, subscribe there. Leave us a comment. Steph is back to responding to comments, so she will talk to you if you leave us a comment on YouTube.
Sometimes, okay? You know, I try to really get back on there. I didn't know you could leave comments on Spotify. I learned this recently, so...
Yeah. Leave us
Tara's
a comment there, too.
Tara's probably responding to those.
I just like them. Yeah.
Okay. And you can follow us on Instagram at Off2BOA Podcast. That's with the number 2. And on TikTok at Off2Broadway.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.